I didn't pack my bags with drama. No shouting match, no slammed doors, no teary goodbyes. I moved states quietly, like someone testing whether their absence would echo at all. It didn't. The day I left, my mother was busy planning my brother Ethan's engagement dinner. My father was on the phone, laughing louder than usual. My sister-in-law-to-be was already calling my childhood home hers. No one noticed me loading my car with everything I owned. No one asked why I was leaving. No one asked where I was going. I told myself they'd call later. They always did, eventually. Days passed, then weeks. I started a new life 3 states away. New apartment, new job, new grocery store where no one knew my name or my family history. I waited for the call that never came. No, did you arrive safely? No, we miss you. No, when are you coming back? Not even a text. At first, I defended them in my head. They're busy. Weddings take time. They assume I'm fine. But deep down, something colder settled in my chest. If I vanished completely, how long would it take them to notice? Apparently, months. It wasn't until my landlord congratulated me on my 6-month residency that it hit me like a slap. 6 months. Half a year. I had moved states, changed my phone number, switched jobs, and my family hadn't noticed a thing. No birthday call, no holiday message, no check-in. I wasn't angry yet. I was embarrassed. Embarrassed that I had spent years trying to earn a place in a family that barely realized I existed. Growing up, Ethan was always the center, the golden son, the one whose mistakes were phases and whose successes were proof. I was the reliable one, the helper, the backup, the one expected to adjust quietly. When I stopped adjusting, no one noticed. Until the invitation arrived. Not a phone call, not even a message, an email. Hey, we're finalizing wedding details. Can you confirm your attendance? That was it. No, how are you? No, where have you been? No, why didn't you tell us you moved? They didn't even know I lived another state. They just assumed I'd show up, like I always had. I stared at the screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the reply button. I imagined walking into that wedding like nothing had changed, smiling for photos, sitting quietly at a table near the back, playing the role they assigned me without question. But something inside me refused. I didn't disappear because I hated them. I disappeared because I wanted to know if I mattered. And now, suddenly, they wanted me back only because my presence fit neatly into their perfect family picture. I hadn't replied yet when my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was cheerful, rushed, and unfamiliar. "Oh, good. You saw the email? So you are coming, right?" She still didn't know. And that's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me that made their lives easier. And if I answered that call honestly, everything they believed about our family would start to crack. But before I could say a single word, my mother asked one question that proved just how invisible I'd been, and I finally stopped pretending it didn't hurt. I held the phone away from my ear for a second, staring at my own reflection in the dark screen. My mother was still talking, rambling about guest counts, table arrangements, colors she hated, colors she suddenly loved. It felt surreal, like listening to a voicemail meant for someone else. "Mom," I finally said. She paused, just briefly, like she was checking a mental list. Yes, you're still there, right? That question hit harder than any insult. Still there, as if my existence was something that could buffer out if ignored long enough. I got the email, I said carefully, but I think you should know something first. Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear her frown forming. Know what? I swallowed. I moved. I don't live there anymore. Silence. Not the shocked kind, not the worried kind, just confusion. Moved where? She asked, like I'd said I rearranged furniture instead of crossing state lines. I moved states, I replied, 6 months ago. Her laugh came out sharp and automatic. Don't be dramatic. You're probably just staying with a friend. No, I said. I have an apartment, a job. I've been gone for half a year. That's when her tone changed, not to concern, but irritation. Well, why didn't you tell us? She snapped. The irony almost made me laugh. Why didn't I tell you? I announced it casually at dinner the night before I left. I remembered because Ethan had barely looked up from his phone. My mother had nodded absently, already talking about the florist. I did tell you, I said quietly. You just didn't hear me. She huffed. That doesn't matter now. What matters is the wedding. We need to know if you'll be here. We need. Not I want, not I miss you, just need. I felt something in me harden. Why do you need me there so badly? She sighed, like I was being difficult on purpose. Because you're family, because people will ask questions, because it would look strange if you weren't there. There it was. Not love, not concern, appearances. So this is about how it looks? I said. Don't twist my words, she warned. Your brother would be hurt if you didn't come. I almost said his name out loud, just to see if it still felt familiar. Ethan, the brother who hadn't called me once, who didn't know where I lived, who was about to get married without realizing his sibling had vanished. Does Ethan even know I moved? Another silence. Longer, heavier. You know I haven't told him yet, she admitted. There's been a lot going on. Of course there had. I imagined Ethan planning his wedding, confident the family was exactly where it always was, reliable, intact, obedient. I wondered if he would feel embarrassed when he found out, or annoyed, or nothing at all. Mom, I said, my voice shaking now despite my efforts, do you know when my birthday was this year? She inhaled sharply. That's not fair. It's a simple question. Why are you doing this? She demanded. This isn't about you. This is Ethan's moment. That sentence confirmed everything I'd been afraid to admit. I wasn't forgotten by accident. I was forgotten because it was convenient. I haven't decided if I'm coming. I need time. Her voice turned cold. Well, don't take too long. Invitations go out this week. The call ended shortly after, with no goodbye. I sat there in my quiet apartment, realizing in my family my presence was optional, until it wasn't. And if I showed up to that wedding, it would only be on their terms.
But the next day, my brother finally called, and what he said made me realize they hadn't just ignored my absence, they'd rewritten it.
When Ethan's name flashed across my phone screen the next morning, my first instinct was to let it ring. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. I had spent years bracing myself for conversations where my feelings were treated like inconveniences. I wasn't sure I had the energy for another one. But I answered. "Hey," he said, cheerful and rushed. "Mom said you might be hard to reach." Might be, as if I was some unreliable signal instead of a person who had quietly disappeared from their lives. "I'm right here," I replied. Good, he said quickly. "So listen, about the wedding, Mom says you're being weird about coming." There it was. Not concern, not curiosity, just an accusation dressed as confusion. "I moved states, Ethan, 6 months ago." He laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "No, you didn't." "I did. You would have told me." "I thought I did." That was when his tone shifted, defensive, annoyed. "Okay, well, Mom says you never made it clear. She thought you were just busy." Busy, that word again, the family's favorite way to explain my absence without questioning their role in it. "So what did she tell you?" I asked. He hesitated. "That you wanted space, that you were focusing on yourself." I closed my eyes. Of course they had made it sound intentional, like I had chosen distance, not been pushed into it by indifference. "I didn't want space," I said. "I wanted someone to notice I was gone." Ethan exhaled slowly. "You're overthinking this. Everyone's been busy. You know how weddings are." I almost laughed. 6 months, Ethan." He ignored that. "Look, I don't care where you live. I just need to know if you'll show up. It would mean a lot to me." That sentence would have meant something if it hadn't come with conditions. "Mean a lot how?" I asked. "Emotionally or visually? What does that even mean?" "It means," I said carefully, "do you want me there, or do you want your family to look complete?" He went quiet, then irritated. "Why are you making this into a thing?" Because it was a thing. It had always been a thing. Growing up, Ethan had never had to fight for attention. He didn't notice when I stayed silent, because silence had never cost him anything. And now, faced with the idea that his wedding might expose a crack in our family's image, he wanted me to smooth it over. "He just thinks you should be there. For Mom, for Dad, for me." No apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. "I haven't decided." He sighed loudly. "Don't do this. People will talk." There it was again, the unspoken rule of our family. Discomfort was unacceptable, but silence was fine. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, replaying the conversation in my head. The story they told about me, the one where I drifted away voluntarily, was easier for them than admitting they hadn't cared enough to notice. But I knew the truth. I hadn't left to punish them. I left because staying meant erasing myself. And now they wanted me back, not to heal, not to reconnect, but to stand in a photograph and prove nothing was wrong. Later that evening, a group message popped up, "Family Wedding Chat." I stared at it, my thumb hovering. They had added me back into the family narrative without asking, and I realized something chilling. If I went to that wedding, I wouldn't just be attending, I'd be validating the lie they created. But what none of them knew was that I'd already accepted a commitment for that same weekend, and it would force me to finally choose between their image and my truth. The truth was, the wedding date had already been claimed long before my family decided to remember me. 2 months earlier, my manager had offered me a chance that felt unreal, a weekend conference in another state, a leadership training reserved for people being quietly considered for promotion. It wasn't flashy, but it was important, the kind of opportunity that didn't come twice. I'd said yes without hesitation. At the time, I didn't think twice about my family calendar. There was nothing on it anyway. Now, staring at the wedding date circled in red in the group chat, my chest tightened. For the first time, I wasn't choosing between right and wrong. I was choosing between visibility and self-respect. The messages started rolling in. Mom, have you booked your flight yet? Dad, let us know if you need help with travel. Ethan, need you to confirm ASAP. Need. Not once did anyone ask how I was doing. Not once did they acknowledge the months of silence. They spoke as if I'd been just out of frame, waiting patiently to be called back in. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again. Finally, I sent the truth. I can't make it that weekend. I already have a commitment. The typing bubbles appeared almost instantly. Mom, what kind of commitment? Ethan, you can move it, right? Dad, family should come first. That last message made my hands shake. Family should come first, spoken by people who hadn't put me first in years. I can't move it, I replied. It's important for my career. The silence that followed was short-lived. Mom, this is incredibly disappointing. Ethan, wow, didn't expect this from you. Dad, after everything we've done for you. There it was. Guilt served hot and familiar. I stared at the screen, feeling that old instinct rise, the urge to explain, to justify, to shrink. But something had changed since I moved away. Distance had given me clarity. I understand you're upset, but you didn't even notice I was gone for 6 months. Please don't act like I'm abandoning you now. No one responded for a while. Then my mother sent a message that made my stomach drop. So you're choosing strangers over your own brother? Strangers. The people who had invested in me, who knew my schedule, who noticed my effort, who called me by name. Yes, I thought, I am. But I didn't type that. Instead, I turned my phone face down and let myself feel the grief I'd been postponing. Grief for the family I'd hoped I had. Grief for the version of myself that kept waiting to be chosen. That night, I booked my hotel confirmation. The email felt like a small victory and a quiet goodbye. The next day, Ethan called again. This time, his voice wasn't annoyed. It was tight, controlled. Mom's really hurt, he said. She thinks you're doing this to make a point. Maybe I am, I replied, but not the one she thinks. He scoffed. You're seriously going to regret this. Maybe, but regret was familiar. This choice felt different. I won't, I said softly. We ended the call without resolving anything, and for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to fix it, because for once, I wasn't the one who broke something. But 2 days before the wedding, a message from my father arrived that revealed just how fragile their perfect family image really was, and why my absence terrified them.
2 days before the wedding, my phone buzzed while I was packing for the conference. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another guilt-laced reminder, but when I saw my father's name, something told me this call would be different. My dad never called unless something was wrong. I answered. "Are you alone?" he asked immediately. "Yes," I said, confused. "What's going on?" He hesitated, lowering his voice like someone might be listening, even though I knew he was sitting in his study, the same one he'd locked himself in whenever emotions got inconvenient. "Your mother's not handling this well," he said. I waited. He rarely led with concern unless it served a purpose. "She keeps asking what people will think," he continued. "Your aunt noticed you weren't in the engagement photos. Now she's asking questions." There it was. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We miss you." Questions. "So this is about gossip?" I said flatly. "It's not just gossip," he replied quickly. "It's perception. People assume things when family members don't show up." I laughed softly, a humorless sound. "They should have assumed something when I disappeared for 6 months." Another pause. He didn't deny it. "Your absence makes it look like something's wrong," he admitted, "and right now we need everything to look right." I closed my suitcase and sat on the bed. "Dad," I asked quietly, "do you know what state I live in?" Silence. Long enough to answer the question without words. "I thought so," I said. His voice softened, but not enough to be comforting. "You've always been independent. We trusted you were fine." Trusted. Another word they used to avoid responsibility. "I trusted I wouldn't need you," I said. "There's a difference." He sighed heavily. "Your brother's fiancé comes from a particular family. Appearances matter to them. If his sibling doesn't attend, it raises concerns." Concerns about what? That their family wasn't as perfect as advertised? "So you want me there to reassure them, not because I'm loved, but because I'm useful." "That's not fair," he protested weakly. "It's accurate," I replied. He didn't argue. Then he said something that finally broke the illusion I'd been clinging to. "If you don't come," he said slowly, "people might assume you're estranged. That reflects badly on all of us." All of us. Not once did he say you. Not once did he ask what their neglect had reflected onto me. "I am estranged," I said. "You just didn't notice when it happened." His breath caught. I think that was the moment he realized the truth couldn't be smoothed over. "We can make this right," he said quickly. "Come to the ceremony. You don't have to stay long, just enough to show unity." Unity. A performance. I imagined flying back, hugging people who hadn't checked on me, smiling for cameras while swallowing years of silence. I imagined going back to my hotel alone afterward, emptier than before. "I won't," I said. The finality in my voice surprised even me. "If you don't come," he warned quietly, "this will change things." I smiled sadly. "Things already changed. You just didn't notice." When the call ended, my hands were shaking, but my chest felt light. For the first time, someone had admitted the truth out loud. My presence was about protecting an image, not repairing a relationship. And now that the image was cracking, they were panicking. I zipped my suitcase and placed it by the door, feeling more certain than ever. But on the morning of the wedding, something happened that none of us expected, and suddenly my absence became impossible to ignore.
I woke up early on the morning of the wedding, not because I had somewhere to be, but because my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. missed calls, messages, notifications stacked like unanswered accusations. I ignored them at first and focused on my own morning. Coffee in a paper cup, sunlight spilling through unfamiliar curtains, the quiet comfort of a life I'd built without asking permission. By the time I reached the conference venue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my cousin Lena. She never called unless something had gone very wrong. "Where are you?" she asked the second I answered. "Not at the wedding," I said calmly. "You're trending in the family group chat, in a bad way." I almost laughed. "Am I?" "They're asking people if anyone's heard from you, like you disappeared overnight." I closed my eyes. Now they were worried. "What happened?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "Your brother's fiancé's parents asked why you weren't there. Someone mentioned you moved, and no one could explain when or why." Of course they couldn't. The lie had no details. "The ceremony was delayed. Your mom was crying in the bathroom. Your dad's making calls." I pictured it clearly, the frantic whispers, the forced smiles cracking under pressure, the perfect family portrait missing a piece they'd assumed would always stay in place. "What did Ethan say?" I asked. Lena hesitated. "He asked Mom when you moved. She couldn't answer." That hurt more than I expected. "She didn't even know," Lena added softly. I thanked her and hung up, my heart racing, not with guilt, but with something closer to vindication. My absence wasn't just noticed, it was exposing. Halfway through the first conference session, another call came through, this time from Ethan. I stepped outside to answer. "Where are you?" he demanded, panic slipping through his anger. "At a conference," I replied. "You're really not coming," he said, disbelief thick in his voice. "No." He ran his hair through his hair. I could hear it. "Everyone's asking about you. This is a mess." "A mess you didn't notice until it affected you," I said quietly. "That's not fair," he snapped. "Today's supposed to be perfect." "Then why does it depend on me?" I asked. Silence. Because he knew the answer. "They think we're not close," he admitted finally. "They think something's wrong with our family." I swallowed. "Something is wrong. It just didn't start today." His voice cracked. "You could have told us." "I did. You didn't listen." Another pause, this one heavier. "I didn't realize," he said quietly. For a moment, I almost softened, but realization without accountability is just regret in disguise. "I hope your wedding is beautiful. I truly do." Then I hung up and went back inside. When the conference ended for the day, my phone was full of messages, some angry, some confused, a few, surprisingly, apologetic. But the most powerful moment came when I saw a photo someone posted online, a family portrait. Everyone was smiling, but the space beside Ethan was unmistakably empty. And for the first time, they couldn't crop me out of the story. But the aftermath of the wedding would change our family forever, and the message I received the next day forced me to decide whether absence could finally turn into truth.
The day after the wedding, my phone was quiet. No accusations, no guilt, no frantic attempts to control the narrative. Just silence. I sat in my apartment, still wearing my conference badge, staring at the city skyline outside my window.
Somewhere else, my family was waking up to the consequences of pretending I didn't exist until it was inconvenient. That silence was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. By noon, a message came through, not in the family group chat, not from my mother, but directly from Ethan. I didn't know. That was all it said. No excuses, no defensiveness, just 3 words that arrived too late and yet still mattered. I didn't reply right away. I needed time to decide whether acknowledgement was enough or whether it was simply the beginning of another cycle where I was expected to forgive quietly and move on. Later that evening, my mother finally called. Her voice was tired, stripped of its usual sharpness. "I didn't sleep," she admitted. I said nothing. "People kept asking about you. I didn't know what to say." I closed my eyes. "That's how I've felt for years." She inhaled shakily. "I didn't realize how far you'd pulled away." "I didn't pull away," I corrected gently. "I stopped chasing." That landed. For once, she didn't argue. "You thought I was strong. You thought I didn't need as much." That sentence hurt, but it also explained everything. They hadn't ignored me because I was unimportant. They ignored me because I seemed survivable without care. I needed to be seen, not managed, not assumed. She cried quietly on the other end of the line. Real tears this time, not performative ones meant to fix an image. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. I looked around my apartment, the life I built when no one was watching. You don't fix it all at once. You start by noticing when I'm gone. We didn't resolve everything that night. There were no dramatic apologies or instant healing, but something shifted. The lie had been exposed, and it couldn't be neatly reassembled. Ethan texted again later. "I should have called sooner. I want to do better, if you'll let me." I stared at the message, then typed back, "We can talk, but I won't disappear for you again." Because this time, I wasn't leaving to be noticed. I was staying where I was already valued. And maybe, just maybe, my family would finally learn that love doesn't show up only when it's convenient. Sometimes absence isn't abandonment. Sometimes it's the only way the truth gets heard.